In my meticulous evaluation of the book, Hebrewisms of West Africa, I highlighted that the author meticulously delves into uncovering Hebrew customs among the Akan people, particularly the Ashanti, yet overlooks a significant practice: circumcision. I illustrated that this omission stemmed from the fact that historically, the Akans did not observe circumcision as a customary rite, a tradition they adopted relatively recently. To support this assertion, I referenced insights from Ashanti historians, accounts from European observers and writers, eyewitnesses, quotations from Karl Randolph, testimonies from a paramount chief, and even shared a YouTube video featuring an Akan individual, all corroborating my stance. This information, often unbeknownst to many Akans today, sheds light on a lesser known aspect of their heritage. Despite encountering opposition from certain Akan apologetics who mistakenly believe that all Ashanti men historically practiced circumcision, but the evidence presented stands as a testament to the historical accuracy of the matter. To address any lingering doubts, I have decided to present additional evidence. The individual on your screen is arguably one of the most respected Akan historians of our time. He is renowned as a historian, professor, and lawyer, having extensively shared his knowledge on various platforms about the history of the Akans, the Gold Coast, Ghana, the Gas, Ewes, and more. Any enthusiast of Akan history would undoubtedly be familiar with his contributions. In one of his televised discussions titled History of the Ga State with lawyer Frimpong Anoche, Part 1 and 2, he delves into the history of the Ga people, touching upon a topic that resonates with our ongoing discourse concerning the Ashanti. I will now play the video and provide an interpretation for those who may not understand the Twi dialect. Before we proceed, let's establish some context. He suggests that there are approximately 5 to 6 points that can be highlighted to draw connections between the Ga people and Israel. These points include the name Ayikushi, the Ga people's assertions regarding their origins tracing back to Israel, the observance of Homowo akin to Passover, and finally, the one I find particularly compelling and wish to delve into further for translation. Let's listen in to explore this point in more detail. I will let him make his point and then I will translate it.
Another thing then say, among all the people of southern Ghana, Titiwa Kanfono, we are this year, near this kind back count, would you come in ye? Inti connected to Hono, not a kind for Omun Chachetia, sir. You catch it out here, circumcision. Na yet. Now the only people I know Mutiano Muye circumcision, any gas to say order na Yankupon de ma Abraham no muna ediso ewaha.
Among the inhabitants of southern Ghana, particularly the Akans, it was customary that anyone of royal lineage who underwent circumcision was exempted from assuming the role of a chief. Therefore, historically, the Akans did not practice circumcision. When we mention Chitia, do you understand it? It refers to circumcision. Within the Akan community, circumcision was not a common practice. The sole group we interacted with who observed this ritual were the Ga people. Similar to the directive given to Abraham in the biblical narrative, it was the Ga people who adhered to, revered, and fulfilled this tradition.
And indeed, sir, we entwa Chetia, na wo ba nkran ahemfi a na omo abisa.
Wow.
Sir, untumi men won abosom no. Onyame omo so na untumi men won ahemfi efi sɛ wo hu ye fi. Sɛ ne Nyankopɔn so ka kyerɛ Abraham ne pepepe sɛ wantwa saa de na ɛyɛ apam foforo ame no ɛyɛ untumi emeye ye emben me.
In fact, individuals who were uncircumcised were prohibited from entering the court of the Ga kings. They would be inquired about their circumcision status, as being uncircumcised meant they were deemed ritually impure and thus unable to approach the Ga deities or interact with their chiefs. This restriction mirrors the concept of uncleanliness depicted in the story of Abraham. Now, these remarks were made during the initial segment of the series. In the subsequent installment titled The History of the Ga People, with lawyer Frimpong Anoche Part 2, he initiates by summarizing the key points discussed in the preceding part. Let's listen to him once more, following which I'll provide a translation.
Yesan kyerɛ mu sɛ nkrɔfoɔ na te Ghana nyinaa no nkranfoɔ influence kɛseɛ paa ɛkyɛ sɛ akanfoɔ yɛn akans yɛn nanam ne yɛsɛ nyɛ wo yɛ de hyɛ yɛn fa se kankan nti ne yɛntwa yɛntwatia we are not doing circumcision nkranfoɔ no nam so mu fi Israel nti no Abraham asefoɔ no nkrani bia yɛtwa ne twatia nti nipa tu ne influence yɛn akans me ehu sɛ ɛyɛ fi nti ɛsɛ yɛtwa. Those in the north were influenced by the Arabs. And those in the south were influenced by the Gas.
Who had a Jewish influence as well.
Just as Arabs. So the same Abrahamic covenant with God.
We elaborated that among all the residents of Ghana, the Gas significantly influenced the inhabitants with circumcision. The Akans had a practice where Akans of royal status were not subjected to scarification. This resulted in the Akans not traditionally practicing circumcision. In contrast, as the Ga people traced their lineage back to Israel as descendants of Abraham, circumcision was a fundamental practice for all Ga individuals. Therefore, two distinct influences shaped our customs. The Akans, emphasizing the uncleanliness of being uncircumcised, adopted the practice. Those in the north were influenced by the Arabs, and those in the south were influenced by the Ga people. These words are not mine. They originate from a distinguished Akan historian who is widely acknowledged as such. Now let's present additional evidence before revisiting the insights of this respected Akan historian, lawyer Anoche Frimpong. In the book Mission from Cape Coast Castle to Ashanti, Bodish affirms this assertion. He states, "The origin and improvement of architecture in the red earth and of garments probably in the palm oil. Indeed, the natives have included the Portuguese, the first foreign traders they knew, in that family, alleging that their long and more intimate intercourse with the blacks has made the present race a mixture of the African and Portuguese. The servant race reminds us of the curse of Canaan. This resembles a Jewish institution, but the people of Accra alone practice circumcision. The people of Accra are the Ga people. Let me repeat that. This resembles a Jewish institution, but the people of Accra alone practice circumcision. That is the Ga people. And they speak a language, as will be shown, radically distinct, yet not to be assimilated to the entire, to which nation they are referred by the Fantes merely because it is the nearest which practices circumcision. This is Bodish in the book Mission from Cape Coast Castle to Ashanti. The account of the Ga people's circumcision practices, as mentioned by lawyer Frimpong Anoche, is corroborated by Romer and Karl Randolph. In Romer's book, The Rise of the Akamu Empire, 1650 to 1710, he discusses how circumcision was a customary rite among the Ga community. This is what he says. An Akwamu prince, Akwetey, had been sent to the Accra court, where it may be presumed that he was expected to learn the ways of the European trade and something of the Portuguese language, then the lingua franca of the Gold Coast, as it was to be until late in the 18th century. The Akras, that is the Ga people, after their fashion, had the young prince circumcised. So this is what the Ga people do as their fashion. The Akras, after their fashion, had the young prince circumcised, which was not only contrary to Akwamu usage, but would presumably debar him from an Akwamu stew. So again, the Akans did not circumcise, as Romer is telling us here. Karl Randolph posits the same. So following the circumcision of this Akwamu prince by the Ga people, which disqualified him from becoming chief, the next in line, Ansa Sasraku, emerged. Ansa Sasraku aimed to prevent an alliance between Agona, their ally in defeating the Ga people, and Achim, sought to appease the Akwamu gods of war. To achieve this, he ordered the capture of uncircumcised Akan boys residing among the Ga populace. This is what we read from Romer. Agona, like Akwamu, was traditionally opposed to Achim, and as early as 1659, Agona is found in alliance with Akwamu and in conflict with Accra and Achim. 20 years later, Agona forces assisted Akwamu in the overthrow of Accra. It may be that the subsequent treatment of the Agona troops by the Akwamu severely strained the alliance between the two states. Certainly, the situation deteriorated so rapidly that in 1688, the Akwamu Hene, Ansa Sasraku, was greatly concerned by the rumors of an impending Agona and Achim alliance, which would have jeopardized the security of the whole western frontier. Akwamu decided to strike before the alliance could materialize. Ansa Sasraku ordered the seizure of uncircumcised boys from Accra, Osu, Labadi, or Nungwa, these are all Gadangbe states, who were to be sacrificed for the intercession of the war gods for an Akwamu victory. Let me repeat that again. Ansa Sasraku ordered the seizure of uncircumcised boys from Accra, Osu, Labadi, or Nungua, who were to be sacrificed for the intercession of the war gods for an Akamu victory. Okay, why would Ansa Sasraku request uncircumcised Akan boys from the Ga community if such individuals did not exist among the Ga people? Remember, the Ga people circumcised. So, Ansa Sasraku's search for uncircumcised boys could not have been the Ga people, because the Ga people circumcised all their males. So Ansa Sasraku, his request for uncircumcised boys, he's requesting for uncircumcised Akan men or boys from the Ga community. Now, if such individuals did not exist among the Ga people, Ansa Sasraku will not be requesting for it. Also, if the gods demanded uncircumcised human sacrifices, the Akan gods, the Akamu gods, if they demanded uncircumcised human sacrifices, wouldn't that serve as a significant indication that uncircumcised Akans were available? One does not ask for something that is non-existent. In the Hebrew Bible, sacrificing a pig is not acceptable to the Hebrew God. He requires offerings like sheep or goat. If Ansa Sasraku intends to sacrifice uncircumcised boys for an Akan war deity, it indicates the deity's preference. This implies that individuals of Akan descent were present in these Ga towns, so these are not Ga boys sought after, but rather Akans residing within the Ga community, giving us further evidence of the status of Akans with circumcision. Let's get some more evidence. In The Fallen Dawa Dawa Tree, a book exploring the emergence of female circumcision in Ghana, Christian Oware, who briefly relocated from Denmark to Ghana, conducted an intensive 1-year pilot research project on the subject. Her studies spanned across Ghana, yielding valuable insights. Alongside female circumcision, she delved into male circumcision practices among various tribes. In this video, I want to particularly focus on the Ga, Ewe, and Akans. Let's start with the Ga people. A male circumcision ritual, Hiani, is practiced by all the Gadangbe groups of people and their subgroups. Let me repeat that again. A male circumcision ritual, Hiani in the Ga tongue, is practiced by all the Gadangbe groups of people and their subgroups. The age of the operation is between the 8th day, on which a child is also given its name, to about 10 years of age. All male circumcision operations I witnessed during my fieldwork were performed on babies between 3 weeks and 3 months old. Because the groups have been made up of numerous small different groups, it is difficult to trace the origins of male circumcision practices through their magical religious practices. Huber, as noted above, remarked that the Krobo merely say that it is a custom, and he continues to say that unlike similar customs in other parts of Africa, the Krobo ritual lacks colorful celebrations, and that only little importance is attached to the ritual. On the other hand, I was told that 1. It is a taboo for women from these groups to marry uncircumcised men. Number 2, even though the origins are not known, the rituals are a prerequisite to ordered sexual relationship in marriage. A Gadangbe male is considered immoral if he does not go through these rituals, in which case his soul will not be able to take its rightful place with the ancestors after death. And that such a ritual is also an acquisition of a man's rightful place in his society regarding obligations and privileges as a man. So this is the account that she gives about the Ga people when it comes to circumcision. Let's go to the Eves. The Eves have a male circumcision tradition, the operation of which takes place between the 8th and the 16th day after birth. Should a baby boy be too weak for the operation within that period of time, the operation has to be performed within 12 months. It is a taboo for an uncircumcised Ewe male to approach a shrine of one of their gods, for example, Yeve, the god of lightning. It is very difficult to trace the origins of Ewe male circumcision. This is what she says about the Eves and circumcision. Now let's go to the Akans. Akan men are not supposed to circumcise. Male circumcision is therefore a serious taboo which, theoretically, robs an Akan male of his ethnic identity. Despite this taboo, apart from a small group of Akans who are Muslims, many Akan males have been influenced by Muslim way of life and have therefore been circumcised, thus destroying the old rich tradition of wholeness of the body. This wholeness of the body is supposed to be a covenant in Akan cosmology. Consequently, the very basis of the Akan culture is destroyed as many members of the subgroups have defiled their sacred ancestral houses and deity shrines on purpose. Such men, I am told, are no longer proper custodians of Akan heritage. And for that reason, many Akan chieftaincy affairs are now filled with bribery and corruption, as some queen mothers and king makers close their eyes to the obvious male circumcision. Therefore, theoretically, any royal man with a body deformity may become a chief. Ideally, anyone that has gone under circumcision cannot become chief. But after being influenced by Muslims and the Gas in the south, now Akans are performing circumcision. Let me read this again. Akan men are not supposed to circumcise. Male circumcision is therefore a serious taboo which theoretically robs an Akan male of his ethnic identity. Despite this taboo, apart from a small group of Akans who are Muslims, many Akan males have been influenced by Muslim way of life and have therefore been circumcised, thus destroying the old rich tradition of wholeness of the body. This wholeness of the body is supposed to be a covenant in Akan cosmology. Notice that Christiana Oware's findings support lawyer Anoche Frimpong's assertions and what I have put forth. In chapters 3, she writes, a male circumcision ritual, Akan and Ga, is practiced by all the Gadangbe groups of people and their subgroups. The age of the operation is between the 8th day, on which a child is also given its name, to about 10 years of age. All the male circumcision I witnessed during my fieldwork was performed on babies between 3 weeks and 3 months old. In one of his letters to his uncle in Holland, towards the end of the 17th century, William Bosman, a Dutch trader on the Guinea coast, wrote about male circumcision practices which occurred only in Accra among the Ga people, but nowhere else in the Gold Coast. Let me repeat that. In one of his letters to his uncle in Holland, towards the end of the 17th century, William Bosman, a Dutch trader on the Guinea coast, wrote about male circumcision practices which occurred only in Accra among the Ga people, but nowhere else in the Gold Coast. He speculated about the origins of the tradition and put forward 2 possible theories. Number 1, that the tradition may have come from the Jews who were exiled to the Guinea coast after being thrown out of Spain in the 15th century. Or number 2, that the custom must have come to the coast through trade contact with the Moors of North Africa. So this is what we are saying, that when it comes to circumcision, it was only the Ga people that were doing it in Gold Coast, and their cousins, the Eves. Akans were not performing circumcision, and that is a fact. Now let's conclude with another video from our esteemed lawyer. In another segment on the topic of the history of the Ga people, he states,
among the Kwa group, nanke ya won hihye bi so obi a ote akonwa so no ye royal no ye mfa sekan enka no nti ye ntwa enim na sabe be man ye don't. But the Gans as a special people no more circumcision.
Oh, okay.
Because they came from Israel, until they believed in circumcision as a ruler, Abraham. Within the
Kwa group, there existed a tradition stating that individuals of royal lineage should not bear scars from a knife. Consequently, we refrain from facial tribal markings and avoid circumcising males from such backgrounds. However, the Ga people, as a special people, considered distinct, practiced circumcision due to their belief in its significance. The Ga's adherence to this practice stems from their origin story linking them to Israel, leading them to view circumcision as a covenant established between Abraham and the God of the Bible. There you have it. My goal here is to highlight a historical fact without ridiculing the accounts. The author of the book, Hebrewisms of West Africa, intentionally disregarded circumcision as a symbol of Hebrew heritage among the Ashanti due to insufficient evidence supporting this claim. Instead of attempting to justify it as a practice of the Akans, even in the past, the author chose not to address it at all. He accurately chose not to address it at all. And there you have it. These are not just accounts from European eyewitnesses, but also from esteemed Akan historians. The evidence stands before you. In the words of the Ga people, the left-handed person is noticed at a community meal. Tra, omanye ablao.